Now, a very strong cynic, which I am sometimes, might lead you to believe that this is all orchestrated, that this permit being handed out to Royal Dutch Shell is not going to get the headlines that the president will get if he goes to Alaska and talks about climate change and talks about how Native Americans up there are being affected by what's happening. Maybe one headline will squash out the other. But I'll tell you what, it's a hell of a coincidence. Let's look at it that way. To me, it makes no sense. And couple that with the president still hasn't made a decision on Keystone. Now, the president's done a lot of executive orders. You mean to tell me that he can't make a decision, that he is waiting for another environmental impact study or an eminent domain decision in a local court in Nebraska to decide whether we should allow TransCanada to put oil over our aquifer in the middle of the country? I find that hard to believe. I think there's been a lot of political tap dancing going on, and the White House has played this Keystone card against environmental groups saying, hey, look, you guys got to be with us on trade because we're there for you, on Keystone. Well, no, you're not. The president hasn't made a decision on that. And if the president's going to hand out drilling permits to Shell in some pristine areas, in risky areas, especially when we have a glut of oil on the world market, I mean, none of it makes any sense. And so here is the president in Alaska talking about climate change.
The time to heed the critics and the cynics and the deniers is past. The time to plead ignorance is surely past. Those who want to ignore the science, they are increasingly alone. They're on their own shrinking island.
So, pretty strong message to basically Republicans in the House and the Senate who are climate deniers. But then the president walks across the aisle and stands with them when it comes to offshore drilling. Listen to this.
Our economy still has to rely on oil and gas. And as long as that's the case, I believe we should rely more on domestic production than on foreign imports. And we should demand the highest safety standards in the industry, our own. Still, I know that there are Americans who are concerned about oil companies drilling in environmentally sensitive waters. Some are also concerned with my administration's decision to approve Shell's application to drill a well off the Alaskan coast, using leases they purchased before I took office.
So what?
I share people's concerns about offshore drilling. I remember the BP spill in the Gulf of Mexico all too well.
Apparently you don't.
That's precisely why my administration has worked to make sure that our oil exploration conducted under these leases is done at the highest safety standards possible, with requirements specifically tailored to the risks of drilling off Alaska.
So, come on, I've had, so somebody in the administration has figured out oil drilling, and they have implemented the highest safety standards, so now we don't have anything to worry about now that Shell is going into northwest coast of Alaska to drill where they really shouldn't be in the first place because we don't need it. This is all about multinational profits and the President of the United States satisfying an oil company, which I think is wrong. Michael Brune is with us. He's the executive director of the Sierra Club, and Sierra Club is one of the oldest, largest, and most influential grassroots environmental organizations in this country. Michael, good to have you with us.
Hey, Ed. Good to hear your voice.
Make rhyme or reason of what is going on here.
I cannot. Look, there's a lot about what the president is saying up in Alaska about climate change that I love to hear, that I agree with. The president has taken a bunch of good steps on climate change, but you just can't. You can't make rhyme or reason to the fact that he is saying that climate change needs to be fought, that we have to act, that it's past time to show leadership, and then to allow for drilling in the Arctic. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's not right. It's not smart. And I'm certainly not going to defend it.
So the president, because Shell Oil applied for these before he was president, he feels, it sounds like he's obligated to go ahead and give him the stamp of approval. This is hypocritical. This is a turn out of right field. This is hard to comprehend. And do you buy the fact that we can drill safely in a part of the world where there's 40-foot seas?
No. Well, listen to this. The oil industry itself says these are the most dangerous seas to drill in on the planet. The government itself, the Department of the Interior, has studied drilling in the Arctic, and they say that there's a 75% chance of a major spill if drilling were to occur. So if you don't agree with the Sierra Club or environmentalists, just look at what the administration is saying, look at what the oil industry is saying. You cannot drill in the Arctic safely. And if there's an accident, the nearest Coast Guard facility is 750 miles away. So this would be a disaster in the making. And there's no way that we are going to let it happen, because what Shell is doing in the Arctic right now is they're drilling 2 exploratory wells. If they find oil, and if they want to sink more billions of dollars into actually trying to commercially drill for oil, then they would need to get a whole series of new permits from the federal government, and that would come before the next president, the person who comes after Obama. So far, we've had Martin O'Malley say that drilling in the Arctic wouldn't happen under his administration. Bernie Sanders has said the same thing, and now Hillary Clinton has said the same thing. So unless Donald Trump or Marco Rubio or Ted Cruz makes it to the White House, there is no way that Shell will be able to drill for oil. The tragedy of all of this is that Obama should have rejected it immediately. We shouldn't even be having this conversation.
There's no question about that. And I don't know why he would go down this road. It totally goes against everything that he has been saying about climate change.
Yeah.
And do we need this? Do we need this oil on the market? Isn't there a glut of oil out there right now? I mean, the Saudis are doing everything they can to make sure that they control the market. I mean, getting oil is not an issue right now.
Getting oil is not an issue right now. To be fair, this oil wouldn't come to market for at least 8, maybe 10 years from now if they got all of their permits and if they were able to drill successfully, which certainly hasn't been proved so far. But the point here is that we have to continue to reduce our dependence on oil. We need less oil now than we did 10 years ago because we've cut consumption so much. And 10 years from now, we'll be using less oil still. So rather than sinking billions of dollars in extending our dependence on dirty fuels like oil, we need to be investing those billions of dollars into advanced batteries and electric vehicles that put Americans to work and also cut our air and water pollution and climate pollution.
I mean, when the president talks about domestic oil production, it's almost as if he's buying Sarah Palin's bullet points.
Look, the issue is not that difficult. If you want to solve the problem of climate change, you should not be investing in more dirty fuel sources. We have to invest in clean energy. We have to say no to expanding drilling for oil and gas and coal if we want to solve this problem. We just have to stand up to companies like Shell in order to do it.
Can the environmental groups such as yourself, Sierra Club, stop this?
Yes, we can. I don't know if we're going to be able to stop Shell from drilling because they're already up there, but we can and we will. I'll bet you lunch, Fred, that Ed, that we are not going to let Shell drill up there. We can do it, and we're going to do it by the next time they apply for a permit. We're going to fight as hard as we can to stop Shell from getting it. Okay. Michael Brune, Executive Director, Sierra Club. Great to have you with us on Ed Schultz News and Commentary. Appreciate it. All right. Thanks, Ed. Talk to you soon.
You bet. It's not Barack Obama that was on the campaign trail in 2008. It's not Barack Obama who was on the campaign trail in 2012 for re-election. Who is this guy?